So yeah, from Vancouver, then one question. Over the last few years, been a lot of negativity in the media, and the concept of doom scrolling has come up, where you may be using your phone and minutes or hours will pass, just negative story one after the other. How can the Muslim break out of that cycle and get into better activities?
Okay, so if I heard the question correctly, um, you mentioned about people just scrolling through stories. I believe, or is it on social media or on
Yeah,
the?
yeah. There's been a term coined for that called doom scrolling, where a person, because there's so much negativity on social media and in news websites, etc., that person can get hooked in for hours just scrolling and scrolling negative stories, and this affects their heart. So how can the Muslim break out of those type of cycles?
Okay, so first and foremost, we should know that um, the access to information in this way, access to literally unlimited information and access to everything which is happening across the world, this can be extremely damaging. It can also be, um, obviously, there are so many harms in this. First of all, it's time wasting. Secondly, it's damaging in the sense that we get distracted from the immediate responsibilities. We are taken from the immediate and what is present, and we are taken to every other corner of the earth. Right? So your physical body is in your house with your family, yet your mind is everywhere else in the world. And so this leads to so many negatives and harms, like distraction and being distracted of mind and full of anxiety and grief. This never used to happen. This if you go back hundreds and hundreds of years back, um, the only thing you would know is what's happening around you. And if news came, it would come after months or weeks, because traveling from one city to another, or one country to another, one land to another, would take weeks, if not months. And so that meant you had more time. You were never distracted by these things. And so this is one of the great, great dangers that are present that are present now, and increasingly so. Um, so the advice, obviously we can speak more and more and more about this reality, but I think we all know, we understand how it is. So I think some practical guidance on how this should be tackled is, first and foremost, it really is the issue of these devices that we have available, um, because of the utility, and because of the ease of just access and just sitting in one place. It really is a tremendous trial. It's a trial because on the one hand there is utility. We do find that there is benefit, but on the other hand, that utility is somehow kind of drowned or compromised by the evil or the harm that comes with it. So the first thing is that you have to clearly define and limit the usage of these devices, right? And you have to really think about this, and, you know, kind of make it clear to yourself and in your mind and to your children what the true utility of these things are. I mean, yes, you can leave the house and you can use the sat nav, and the women have the ability to, make a call if they have any need of anything, or just to feel safe. And yes, there are all those types of things. So many utilities you can read, and yes, that's true. It's true, but that is not a replacement for the original ways of acquiring knowledge and benefiting. The original ways is to go to the dars in the masjid. The original way is to listen to a lecture by a scholar, or if not, a student of knowledge, or it is to, and if not, then, study a book, right? These are the original ways. And these devices should not be a replacement for that. And I think that's part of the reason why people get drawn and sucked into it's the actual device itself, and not knowing how to use it, in a limited, beneficial way, such that it doesn't overtake your life. Secondly, the second thing is that, what is the benefit if you? It's understandable. For example, let's say you are in a position in a Muslim government, for example, who has been given the responsibility as part of being in a Muslim government, and for investigating like the affairs to do with economy and politics and things of that nature, and looking at what's happening from the angle of just from the siyasa, sharia, things that you need to know, which unless you are one of those people where the knowledge that you are acquiring is going to have some practical value, and it can be used, in some practical, beneficial way. Unless you're one of those people, then what benefit is there in you knowing what's happening in every nook and cranny of the world, and doom and gloom? What's the benefit in that? There isn't any benefit. You're just being distracted away from your immediate life and your immediate responsibilities. So I think what needs to be done, much more can be said, but just to keep the answer very brief, is that first of all, you really have to sit and think and look at what is the utility of these devices, and where is the danger of these devices, keeping in mind obviously that the people who've put these things in our hands, they do have a particular goal, a particular agenda, and it is to engross the person and to tie them up into like the market share, and clearly this is what is intended by these devices with all the apps and the big companies. So we need to be clear that we conceive of these things in the right way. They are basically a trap. It's a trap. And unless you know how to use this thing to your benefit, then it's going to be used against you, whether you like it or not. And so the first thing you need to do is to clearly think and understand about the reality of these devices. Secondly, you then need to define how you're going to use it. Right? Okay, it's there for my calls, and if I'm out traveling and I don't have the mushaf, then I can use it to read the Quran, and other than that, I'm only going to use it half an hour. I will give half an hour for me to check up on my messages and so on and so forth. At a particular time, maybe while I'm on my lunch break, or maybe when I've finished for the evening, and probably half an hour between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock or whatever. You've got to clearly define how you are going to use it, and you've got to stick to that, right? You've got to have discipline, and you've got to stick to that. And thirdly, as was mentioned in the question, like the doom scrolling, so to speak, well, what you put through your mind, what you enter into your mind through the hearing and the senses, well, that's your mind is going to become. So if you want to feed your mind with the food of anxiety and stress and grief and worry and despair, then it doesn't really make any sense. This is not the way of an intelligent person, and you could be using that time instead of reading positive things, reading the stories of the prophets, reading the ahadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, things which instead of the doom and gloom and despair and all the kind of sicknesses and diseases of the heart which are produced thereby, why don't you give your heart something that's going to produce the opposite? So a lot more can be said. But I think within what's mentioned, you have to really realize that these devices are a trap. They can become an enemy to you, and it's very deceptive, because yes, there is some utility, but the utility can be drowned if you're not careful by all of the evil that comes with it. And so your usage has to be defined, has to be limited, and you've got to have a lot of patience. It's very, very easy to get caught up in this and be deceived into thinking, well, I need to know what's going on, and I'll be out of touch if I don't. And no, learn to be on your own, free of any distraction. Look at the creation of Allah, look at what's around you, look at the trees, look at the rain, look at the birds, look at the, look at what is immediately around you. Because the way this thing is going is that instead of the actual reality around you, they'll put the blinkers on you and take you into the metaverse, and there'll be a fake manufactured reality, which is the kind of direction this is going. So technology is a great trial, and people are being put to trial by it. Lives have been ruined, lives have been destroyed, people have been drowned in sin by way of it, and they've been taken away from reality by way of it. They are living in a fantasy world, just in their mind, because they are abandoning what is immediate and present in the now, and their mind is somewhere else, and so there are so many evils. In fact, this is like a lecture in itself, to look at all of these issues comprehensively from every direction, from the point of view of like technology, what is intended by it, how it affects the mind, how it affects the brain, how it feeds addiction, how it takes you away from. There's so many things which could be addressed. But anyway, inshallah, I hope in what has been mentioned there is sufficiency, inshallah ta'ala, and Allah knows best.